36 years ago today, January 13, 1982, the life and time of Brian Glaze Gibbs. It was a Wednesday morning when I was awakened on Rikers Island by a CO and escorted to C-74 receiving room to be processed. I just got finished getting sentenced to 2 to 4 in Queens for a robbery that I did and 2.5 to 5 in Brooklyn. So now it's time for me to go ahead and do my state time. As we in downstairs in the reception area, approximately 30 others, adolescents ranging from the age of 16 to 20, we was all strip search, for contraband, weapon, drugs, anything we ain't supposed to have. We all was shackled and placed on that charter bus, leaving the famous Rikers Island. Keep in mind the weather condition that day was horrible. It was a blizzard. And we was traveling all the way from East Elmhurst, Queens, New York, all the way to Elmira Correctional Facility, escorted by at least 6 heavily armored correctional officers. That trip seemed like it took forever. I can recall when we finally got to Elmira and how the bus went through that gate and how myself and the other prisoners was escorted off the bus into the facility. We was all strip search. They sprayed us down for bugs, let us shower, then they gave us green clothing, state property. As we was escorted to the reception center, as you walking through there, only thing you have, all these inmates. You talking about approximately damn near like 400 inmates screaming at the top of their lungs. New Jack, new Jack, new Jack. Being new, not knowing what to expect, but they just screaming, seeking to intimidate you. As they escort each and every one of us to our cell, I, Brian Glaze Gibbs, as a cell door shut, was now known as inmate 82B0082. Life and time of Brian Glaze Gibbs. During the spring of 1988, I was driving around in my decked out black 760 Volvo in Brooklyn. What a beautiful day. I was sporting one of my mini feline suit and kit, crazy jewelry, and don't forget my point blank bulletproof vest like the American Express card. Can't leave the house without it. This particular day, I stopped by a friend's house. I got out of the Volvo on Franklin and Myrtle, approximately 6 p.m. As I was talking to my friend for about 15 minutes, I kept scanning the block from both directions, always being on point from possible danger. Too late. Danger was heading my way. Allah Justice, K. Sean, and another 5%. Once again, I was looking death in the eyes. Although I walked through the shadow of death, I should fear no evil. The closer they got, I was trying to come up with a master plan. My mind was racing. Besides my friend, her sister was sitting in my Volvo. As she sensed the danger, her sister drove off in my Volvo, leaving me and her sister behind to face these 3 career criminals with a resume of murder, robbery. This crew were known for robbing and killing any and everyone on sight. As they got within 10 feet, to say I was not afraid, I would be lying. I had to dive into action, position myself as if I had a gun, and start licking each one of them in the eyes back and forth. Allah Justice and myself used to be good friends when we was kids back in our Bedford-Stuyvesant days. When Allah Justice approached and embraced me, Allah Justice felt the bulletproof vest, and he made a statement that he could see that I am right. Meaning, if you have a bulletproof vest, you are carrying a gun. K. Sean and I got into a no-hold-barred stare-down contest. This lasted about 60 seconds before Allah Justice came with that political correct line. Come on, man. Chi, you are my man. K is my man. Y'all need to work it out. I told K. Sean I appreciate the fact he wanted to come see me while I was fighting the murder beef and offer his assistance in taking care of any witness in my case at the time. I then went on to ask K. Sean, did he kill Wood? The political correct answer would have been no. But this bold ass brother looked me in the eyes and said, if you kill somebody, will you tell me? I said, you are right. He just told me indirectly that he killed Wood just came back, yo, I want to get down with Eminem. I told him, sure, come and see me. I will hook him up with some work. You know, a couple of ounce of boy is another term for heroin, or half a key a girl, which is a term for coke. As the trio walked off into the abyss of Brooklyn, I knew then this was a close one. I played poker by bluffing them as if I had a gun, and they went for it. I turned to my friend and asked her if she was crazy, why didn't she go inside her house? Her exact word was, if they was going to kill you, then they would have had to kill her. Trust me when I say they would. When the trio left, they didn't kill me because they felt I would have killed one of them in the process, not knowing I didn't have a gun. A grave mistake on their behalf. That night, I shot Allah Justice in the face in the Cypress Hill houses in my building 1266. About a month later, K-Sean was murdered in his Tompkins apartment. His girlfriend was murdered on the staircase. Rumors has it that my Eminem crew was responsible for that case. That case is still open. The life and time of the one they call Brian Glaze Gibbs, episode 3. First time I met the original 50 Cent was in 1971. I was 7 years old and he was 6 years old. It was in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn, New York, Horsey, between Patch and Ralph. That's where I reside with my family. 50 Cent was visiting his family on that block, which became a pattern. His cousin Cannon, Pop, Michelle, and Belinda. Our typical day was running up and down the block and playing kiddie games. Our friendship lasted until 1975, when my family moved from Bedford-Stuyvesant to Cypress Hill houses, the East York section of Brooklyn. I didn't run back into 50 Cent until 1981. I was 17, he was 16 on Rikers Island when I caught my last robbery case that led to me doing 3.5 years upstate New York. When we ran into one another on Rikers Island, he was going by the name of Shamik. This little nigga with a big mouth and gold teeth, and a lot of these older brothers wanted to get him because of his mouth. I protected 50 because he was like family. On January 13, I went upstate to serve my time. 50 returned to the streets of New York to embark on becoming the original 50 Cent. We didn't run back into one another until December of 1984. I was home for less than 1 month. I was at Horton Skidmore Hall train station waiting on the train when this little short dude walked past me with this mean mug expression as 2 6'3" brother was right there behind him like his bodyguard. Keep in mind, 50 walked past me when he doubled back after recognizing me and started yelling in the crowded train station, "My man Glaze is home." We embraced and started talking. He wanted to meet him later that night at the Empire skating ring. I didn't go that night. He got into beef that led to one of his many arrests, and he was doing time. We didn't run back into each other until approximately 2 years later. My buddy, Kevin Martin, man, that dude was something else. The life and time of the one they call Brian Glaze Gibbs. Who am I to say who lived or who died? I am not God. At one point in time in my life, I had a small army following behind me for all the wrong reason. Imagine if I was smart enough, disciplined enough, and more forward thinking, I would have had them following me, preventing criminal activity in the neighborhood and creating a no crime zone. It was the first weekend of March in 1986. I just arrived back to Brooklyn, New York from upstate New York from visiting a former co-defendant of mine who was serving a life sentence in Auburn Correctional Facility. I met up with my brother Cool in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn, St. Mark and Notion Avenue. When my beeper went off, Amari was calling me with 911 behind it. As I went to the corner, used the payphone, this individual called my name. As I turned around, I noticed it was Dushawn aiming a nickel-plated .357 Magnum at me. Approximately 2 weeks prior, Dushawn and his partner and I got into a big shootout. due to they were trying to relieve me of my jewelry at the time. My first response was my only response. As DMC say from Run DMC, run, 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 run. I ran as fast as I could down Notion Avenue as Dushan was hot on my trail, blasting away, boom, boom, boom. I'm ducking and moving in between cars like an obstacle course. 4 blocks into running, a cab was dropping off 3 female passengers. I pull out a wire to clash and told the driver he can have it if he would just drive me off and take me to safety. The driver drove off with his door open, banging into parked car. All I can hear is that loud noise from that 357 Magnum ringing in my ear. Normally, NYPD finest foot patrol is all up and down Notion Avenue. Not at this evening, as I am out of breath, about 8 blocks away and no Dushan in sight. I try to regroup as my brother paged me, and I returned the call and gave him my location. He came, picked me up. All I'm thinking about is when I catch up to Dushan, it is over. We left Crown Heights and headed to Cypress Hill houses. I went to see my mother and let her know that I know the homicide detective from 75th Precinct was looking for me. On Monday morning, I would go down to my lawyer office and turn myself in if it was necessary. I kissed my mother and told her that I love her, and headed to the 18th side of the project to talk to Arif and L. As I entered into 315 Fountain Avenue, I ran into Arif. We talked about several matters. I went upstairs to several different apartments looking for L. No luck. As I'm exiting the building and looking towards the front, Fountain and Sutter Avenue side exit, Arif asked me, Glaze, who's that in that dark sedan that seemed to be just sitting there? I told him that it was probably customers. As I left the building, heading in the opposite direction, exiting between building 315 Fountain and 1240 Sutter. As I made a left, jogging behind 315 Fountain Avenue, that same car that Arif and I just spoke about came up, screeching. Front and back tinted window went down and guns start firing. As I hit the ground, Arif and Cool came around the corner to check on me and make sure I wasn't hit. The nerve of these lowlife, they tried to kill me with my own gun. How crazy is that? Less than 3 hours, I was shot at in 2 different sections of Brooklyn by 2 different groups. I was pissed. Somebody got to pay. I went back to the crib, placed on my bulletproof vest and got my guns and went hunting for Dushan and Crazy. Whoever I had beef with and whoever I ran into would have definitely meet their maker that night. By 3 a.m., after driving around heavily armed and couldn't find my intended target, I went in the house, got a couple hours of sleep. That Sunday morning, I got up. Me and my brother, we headed to Bed-Stuy, picked up my man Sid. As we was driving around the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn, I noticed we was being followed by homicide detective. As they placed their siren on and instructed us to pull over, I requested that my brother and Sid to put our hands up in the air, and they both complied. When the detective got out of the car, they instructed us to put our hands down. Routine check. The next thing we knew, 12 to 15 blue and white cars came out of nowhere. They gun draw. All you can hear shouting and screaming for us to put our damn hands up. They removed my brother and Sid from the car, and one of the homicide detectives told me, either we have the wrong person or you in a lot of trouble. I was taken for 2 murders that day and was released after midnight the next morning. And I was on a cloud 9. Like, here it is, they picked me up for 2 homicides and they let me go.
Worst come to worst, my family come first. I have always been family oriented since childhood. Despite being born in Brooklyn and hustling back and forth in Queens, I only went to Manhattan and the Bronx to visit my family or to party, disco fever. During the spring of 1988, my cousin Samuel from the Bronx came and paid me, his younger cousin, a visit. I'm always pleased to see family, except at funeral. His visit was to prevent me from attending his Samuel funeral. A few nights ago, Samuel was at the world famous Apollo Theater for amateur night at the Apollo. This place was packed. All the who is who, from celebrity, ball player, and hustler, out having a good time. Plenty of women, and at time, most of the beef was over a woman. Well, Sammy and another guy that Sammy was friend with named World from the Boogie Down Bronx was joking with each other around the bar. And World made a comment that causes the lady and the other guys that was around to laugh uncontrollably. And Sammy became embarrassed and punched his friend World in his face, breaking his glasses. This incident was broken up and both parties was escorted out of the building, with World yelling at the top of his lung that Sammy is a dead man. So that was the reason why my long-lost cousin was here, needed my help to fix his problem. We left Brooklyn, got into the car, heading to Manhattan. First stop, 125th and 8th Avenue. Kevin Child, the owner of Don Diva sneaker store. When me and my cousin and two of my people, Shorty G and Ichimo, walked in. Keep in mind, Shorty G and Ichimo, they had on army fatigue with the MAC-10 submachine gun strapped around their neck with the gun right there ready for action. As we walk around the store awaiting the customer to exit, I approached one of the workers who was directly behind the counter and told him that I was looking for World. Do he know where I can find him? The brother behind the counter started getting all emotional on me, like DJ Flex. He was saying how he was coming up in here with our guns out. I stopped him. We are customer. Let me get some socks, underwear, sweatsuit, etc. I paid for the item and asked him where could I find World. He told me he didn't know. We left out and headed to the Bronx. Once we got to the Bronx and got out of the car near the bar King Arthur that World and his brother owned. As we was walking towards the bar, World was coming our way and he stopped and was turning back around. When I yelled for him to hold up, he turned back around and I told him, let's talk. World went on to say he heard that we are looking to kill him. I pull up my hoodie, only showing my bulletproof vest, no gun. And I asked him, can him and I go back into the bar and talk one-on-one? He agreed. As we are in the bar talking, I asked him what it's going to take to squash this beef with him and my cousin Samuel. World replied by asking if he would have punched you in your face in front of a crowd at the Apollo Theater and broke your glasses, what would you do? I told World, I am not you and you are not me. But hopefully I would have been smart enough to allow my emotion to supersede my intellect and be able to walk away due to it was too many witnesses and I couldn't get away with it. I asked World how much was his Gazelle glasses. He said $500. I went in my pocket and gave him five $100 bills. I went on to say, if you kill Sammy, Sammy's dead. Now you're going to jail for 25 to life. Nobody win. Y'all both lost. I asked World to please squash the beef for me. I told him if he squashed this beef, then I owe him. I owe him big time. I say, do your homework. Ask around about who is Glaze. If you need cocaine or heroin, I can get it for you. If you need anybody hit except Sammy, I owe you. I will take care of it, whatever you need. All you have to do is squash the beef. I summoned Samuel. He came into the bar and we all sat and talked. They hugged and they squashed the beef.
The life and time of Brian Glaze Gibbs. Murder was a case that they gave me, and I was guilty. My trial started Wednesday, June 17. As 12 jurors on my pair, both man and woman, sat in the jury box in Brooklyn Supreme Court, with the Honorable Francis Ajita presiding over my trial. My lawyer, my family, and I sat on one side of the courtroom. The prosecutor and the victim family sat on the other side. The prosecutor presented his opening argument and painted a gruesome picture detailing the murder and how the state planned to prove that I, Brian Glaze Gibbs, did shot and left the victim on a dark, isolated block in Brooklyn to die. Every day, as Department of Correction escorted me to court, I either had on a suit, shirt, and tie, or a sports jacket, slack, shirt, and tie, sporting a TWA, a teeny weeny afro, with some nerd eyeglasses on. Keep in mind, perception is everything. During the time, as I was incarcerated, back and forth from Brooklyn House of Detention in the Lover Resort of Rikers Island, HDM, and C95, police brutality. 13 months prior, when I turned myself in, I had Murray Cutler as my lawyer. His son Bruce was representing the late John Gotti at the time. This is from the late writer
news writer Michael McLary. He once wrote an article, and I quote his word: John Gotti is an Italian. Because of that, he get all the attention, as the Gambino are not equal opportunity employers. Black kids cannot grow up to be the late John Gotti. They can, however, grow up to be Brian Glaze Gibbs. I led myself to believe that Kings County District Attorney Office would have granted a career criminal like myself a bail on a murder charge. It didn't happen. During that whole time, the state made an offer, and that offer was I, Brian Glaze Gibbs, to plead guilty, and the state would grant me mercy by sentencing me 25 to life. No deal. That is why we was here in Brooklyn Supreme Court from June 17 through June 22nd, listening to testimony from key witnesses, the victim family, crime scene expert, law enforcement, and the medical examiner to state the cause of death. The DA presented a case, and Mr. Cutler picked his case apart. Both sides rested, and the case, my life and future, was in the hands of 12 strangers, deliberating if I was guilty or innocent, if I was going to return back to society as a free man, or heading upstate New York to serve a 25-to-life prison system. As the jury deliberated for hours, I sat back in a courtroom cell with a bunch of other inmates fighting their criminal cases. I can remember when a court officer came to escort me back to the courtroom. The verdict was in. I can recall heading into the courtroom, and the officer uncuffed me as I sat next to Mr. Cutler and told my mother and family that no matter what the outcome, I love them and everything would be all right. As all the jury returned and sat down, Judge Ajita asked the jury foreman, have they unanimously reached a verdict? And the foreman replied by saying yes. Judge Ajita asked my lawyer and I to stand and start reading off the charge. On the charge of murder in the second degree, how do y'all find the defendant? The foreman, not guilty. On the charge of attempt murder in the second degree, how do y'all find the defendant? Foreman, not guilty. Until this day, I can still hear my mother's voice cry out throughout the whole Brooklyn Supreme Courthouse. I lost it. I broke down and cried. As the judge thanked and dismissed the jury, I was escorted back to the holding cell with the other pretrial inmates. And several of them, seeing how emotional I was, they came up to me to allow me to know that everything's going to be all right and that I can beat it on an appeal. I heard that story before. I had to stop them in their track by allowing them to know that I wasn't crying because I lost. I was crying due to murder was the case that they gave me, and I was guilty, but I won, and I was going home. Me being acquitted on all charges and returning back to society as a free man, you think I would have learned my lesson. Please do not be like me or so many others that destroy our lives and the lives of others. People, listen up. I do not brag about my life. I do not brag about all the things I've been through. I done went through hell and back. And when you sit back and look at all the shit that you went through in life, all because of what? Because you want to be down, you want to be cool, you want to be a fucking gangster, a thug, whatever you may call it. But always sit back and think. When you go through all of these trials and tribulations, you do not go through it by your damn self. You go through it with the people that love you the most. Your mother, your father, your grandparents, your siblings, your kids, you name it. Those are the people that you go through these trials and tribulations with. And because of me, because I became who I became, Brian Glaze Gibbs, guess what? I never got the opportunity to go to my mother's funeral. They didn't allow me to go to a funeral to pay my last respect. All because of what? All because of me wanting to be down, wanting to be cool, wanting to be the next American motherfucking gangster. You know what? That was some real stupid shit on my behalf. And I'm telling y'all, from many years of regret, that crime does not pay. Don't be like me. Don't be like these wannabes. Later for that, it's hard being other than yourself. Be you. Only you. Strive to do the right thing. Develop work ethic. Go to school. Join the military. Whatever you need to do, do the right thing at all times. Think. Do critical thinking for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Crime doesn't pay. Here it is, because of my stupidity, once again, I wasn't able to pay my last respect to the woman that I love the most. She was my mother, my father, my big sister, my best friend. Rest in peace, Mom. I love you. Straight from the Street, Volume 1. My name is Brian Glaze Gibbs. One day, as Tut and I was walking past the Kingdom Hall Jehovah's Witness on Fountain Avenue and across the street from Cypress, where Tut and his whole family attended, Tut say, let's stick up the Kingdom Hall. We can get paid. Fort Greene, Farragut Houses, Murder Avenue, Junior, Aubrey Square Mall, Puerto Rican Supreme, Rap, Jamel, Killer Ben, Nas, and D. Wes. The whole Brooklyn was like Beirut back then. Any and everything go. I only had one problem with Kendu. When I came home after being acquitted in June of 1987, he was having a birthday party for his daughter in Plaza Center. And he had a small army, some of his friends from Queens, the Bronx, and Brooklyn. They was all strapped with guns and supposed to be on point for security. He lied and told these guys that this crazy brother by the name of Glaze had just came home and that I was coming up the plaza with a whole army to take over his drug operation. One evening, it was a big basketball game going on, and everyone from Lou Harb, Demisio, Tut, Alpo, Black Just, the who's who of the game, when a shootout erupted. I made sure that my Brooklyn folks got out of harm's way and back into their car safe and sound. During that period, Lou, Demisio, and a lot of guys from Brooklyn discovered a gold mine in DC and Baltimore, and they start setting up shop and was getting paid in full. What most people don't know, and that is Pappy is not Jamaican. Pappy is more American than baseball, apple pie, and Chevrolet. He just practiced the Rastafarian religion. I can remember when Calvin McLeod, aka Allah Justice, and I were still close friends. He had gotten into a beef with some guys from the Fort Greene Farragut section at Aubrey Square Mall. Just so happened, I was strapped, and I pull out
natural endurance, stamina, and action. My name K2, you know what I'm saying, man? Young cat trying to get my life together, man. This right here, a lot of knowledge, man. Strong-minded, I appreciate it.
Big day. Went ahead and got my book, Beyond Lucky. BGG, Brian Glaze Gibbs. Signed autograph copy, means a lot to me. For my brother, day one support. Love and prosperity. Right back to you, my boy. My G, my big homie, my brother. Let's get it. Made Media Mafia Magazine exclusive. Mafia Apparel. Making a future in art. Making a difference every day. Still here. Let's get it. Free Meech. Rest in peace, baby blue.